Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Martinez. Something happened that no president in this country's history has ever done before. Something that goes far beyond partisan politics. Something that completely sets aside the debate over whether one is left or right, liberal or conservative. Because this is a fundamental issue of humanity. On Friday night, Robert Mueller passed away. He was 81 years old. He was a Princeton graduate. He had served in Vietnam. He had rescued a wounded soldier under enemy fire. He had received the Bronze Star. He had received the Purple Heart. He had led the FBI for 12 years. That's truly an extraordinary amount of achievement for one life. He had been placed at the helm of this country's most critical institution with the full confidence of presidents from both parties. And on Saturday afternoon, on Truth Social, the 47th President of the United States wrote the following: Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. Pause. Stop for a moment and feel the weight of this sentence. This is the moment when a nation's president shares his joy over the death of a war veteran with the world. This is the moment when a triumphant shout from the Oval Office echoes across the globe. And this moment compels us to question not just Trump, but where this country stands. Or am I just getting carried away? Please share your thoughts. The media framed this event as a controversy. They packaged it as a matter of broken protocol. But no, this is much bigger. This is the moment that fully, definitively brings a character into the light. And today, we will examine that character in all its dimensions. Because within this story lies a terrifying mirror that the media has ignored. And in that mirror, we see not just Trump's face, but where this country's moral compass has turned. First, let's get to know Robert Mueller, really get to know him, because calling him Trump's investigator is just as reductive as calling Michelangelo a ceiling painter. Yes, yes, you heard me right. I said exactly that. Robert Mueller volunteered for the Marine Corps immediately after graduating from Princeton in 1966. He went to Vietnam. He commanded a rifle squad in the 3rd Marine Division. Under enemy fire, he carried a wounded soldier on his back to safety. This bravery earned him the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, and 2 Navy Commendation Medals. Now, think about it. This man's life in a nutshell, shedding blood on the battlefield, then serving this country through the pursuit of justice. Throughout his career, Mueller served as a Navy officer, federal prosecutor, FBI director, and special counsel. He was nominated by Republican President George W. Bush and confirmed unanimously by the Senate, becoming the second longest serving director in FBI history after J. Edgar Hoover. This man was not partisan. Democratic President Obama also wanted to keep him in office. In his 2013 farewell address, Obama said, "Today, countless Americans are alive and this country is safer, thanks to the extraordinary work of the FBI under Bob Mueller's leadership." And now, at a time when this man's family is mourning, as his family announced his death with deep sorrow and requested privacy, the President of the United States is posting this online. Good, I'm glad he's dead. The reaction from people across all walks of life was one of shock. Congressman Seth Moulton, himself a Marine Corps veteran, wrote, "Whether you support the president or not, you know this comment is disgusting." He noted that Mueller was a recipient of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart and called Trump a source of shame for America. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, however, summed up the moment in a single sentence: "Oppression is the ultimate goal." But hold on, because this isn't a political debate, it's a psychological profile. And to understand that profile, we need to put the two men side by side. The picture Charlotte Clymer painted was striking. Trump and Mueller were born just 2 years apart. They were raised in similarly privileged environments. But Trump received 5 draft deferments from the Vietnam War. Mueller, on the other hand, volunteered for the front lines, was wounded, and rescued his soldiers under enemy fire. This isn't just a contrast, it's a complex that has grown over the years into an existential jealousy, finally condensed into a single Truth Social post. Trump never saw Mueller as merely an enemy. Mueller represented what Trump could never be: true service, true courage, true integrity, and that is precisely why that post reflected such a raw, such a bare feeling. This was not a political maneuver. It was the final eruption of something that had been building up inside him for decades. Now let's look at the investigation itself, because without understanding this context, it is impossible to understand Trump's panic. The 448-page Mueller report, published in 2019, was a massive document that documented significant contacts between the Trump campaign and Russia, but did not allege a criminal conspiracy. However, the most striking part of the report was this. Mueller laid out in detail Trump's attempts to obstruct the investigation, and that unforgettable line from the report: "Had we, after a thorough examination of all the facts, been confident that the president had not committed the crime of obstruction of justice, we would have stated so explicitly." This sentence was not a conviction, but it was not an acquittal either. It was one of the sharpest silent indictments in legal history. And that silence haunted Trump for years. Mueller's investigation led to the prosecution of many figures in Trump's inner circle, earning him Trump's enduring wrath. Now let's measure that anger for a moment. Mueller passed away Saturday morning, and while his family was still shedding tears, Trump logged onto the internet's most chaotic platform within hours to shout his victory. This was the result of a compulsive need. It was an expression of something he couldn't control, and this loss of control is the character's most raw form. Click the subscribe button now. Every week on this channel, we dive into the depths of events the media skims over, with you bearing the full weight of the truth. If you don't subscribe, you'll miss the next major earthquake. And these days, earthquakes are coming one after another. Let's continue. Former Attorney General Eric Holder wrote after Trump's post was published, "I don't think any sane person who knew Bob or worked with him felt anything but the utmost respect for him." Holder described Mueller as the ultimate defender of the rule of law. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, meanwhile, spoke to CNN. He was a true American hero and a true American patriot. None of these names are far-left activists. These are people who have walked the halls of the FBI and worked within the walls of the Department of Justice. And they all converge on the same point. Robert Mueller was the embodiment of public service. Now add Trump's reaction to this picture: a president celebrating the news of a death as if it were a victory. This is not a political calculation. This is a symbolic declaration of war against America's institutions, this country's tradition of service, and the honor of the military. And the cost of this declaration will be heavy. Now let's see how this moment fits into the broader picture, because Trump's Mueller post cannot be evaluated in isolation. This post is a product of a larger atmosphere. Senate Minority Leader Schumer argued that Trump's post was intended to divert attention. He wants to divert the public's attention from issues like rising gas prices, a pointless war, ICE abuses, and the Epstein case. This analysis may be correct. Politicians always divert attention, but this time, the cost of that diversion is different. Because diverting attention by targeting a Bronze Star recipient, a Purple Heart veteran, a Vietnam War hero, this puts at risk something the Republican Party has spent years building: military pride, the rhetoric of patriotism, the "we honor our nation's veterans" narrative. Congressman Seth Moulton's words perfectly summarize this contradiction. Whether you support the president or not, you know this comment is disgusting. Whether you support him or not. This sentence attempts to carve out a nonpartisan space, and this space is a rare thing in this country, one that is growing increasingly narrow. Now let's look inside the Republican Party. What came from Republicans in response to Trump's post? Silence. A loud, deliberate silence. The same silence that descends after every provocation, revealing that the party is sinking deeper into a culture of acquiescence. Commentator Harry Sisson articulated this contradiction clearly. "I expect every Republican outraged by those celebrating Charlie Kirk's death to immediately condemn Trump." This is the mirror test. If something coming from the other side angers you, the same thing coming from your own side should anger you too. And this test is being failed miserably by the vast majority of the Republican Party today. So, what does this mean for the elections? What does it mean for the future of our institutions? Let me put it this way: history records these moments. It has to, because this country's political memory is made up not of numbers, but of character. People sometimes forget specific policies, but they never forget the moment a president shouted his joy at the death of a war veteran. Obama bid farewell to Mueller with these words. His tireless commitment to the rule of law and his unwavering faith in this country's core values made him one of the most respected public servants of our time. And in contrast, a post written in a few seconds on Truth Social, filled with rage, two legacies, two characters, and history will record both. The words of former Justice Department spokesperson Xochitl Hinojosa are decisive at this point. Robert Mueller was a recipient of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. We don't treat a distinguished veteran, prosecutor, and former FBI director this way. We don't treat him this way. Take note, this sentence is not an accusation. It is a declaration of mourning. A declaration of mourning regarding who this country is. And at this point, I want to ask you a question. Don't just answer, really think about it. If a president can publicly share that he takes joy in a war veteran's death, and if that post can be applauded by millions of followers, is there still a common moral ground in this country? Or has that ground eroded so much over the years that there's no place left to stand? Ask yourself this question and write your answer below. Whether you say yes or no, I want to read them all because that is the reason this channel exists, to bring different perspectives together and seek the truth together. Robert Mueller is no longer with us today, but the legacy he left behind is, in the eyes of many, the legacy of the most honest public service this country has ever seen. And this legacy will endure far beyond a single Truth Social post. I'm Joe Martinez. If this kind of analysis, these depths the media overlooks, is valuable to you, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, because there are still many more chapters to this story, and we'll watch every one of them together. See you soon.